In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to set up the Flexera LMTools network licensing with the Red Transit Consultants license files and vendor daemon. First, you'll want to download LMTools. There's a link to that on the Autodesk website through our help file. The latest version, you can check your About dialog here. The latest version released for 2019 and 2020 products for Autodesk is 11.16.2. It's best to get that updated before moving forward. Then you're going to want to download the Flex RTC exe vendor daemon file. You can do this corresponding to your LMTools version that you have if you want to stay back on an older version of LMTools, or go with the 11.16 version. When downloading the Flex RTC exe file, be sure to right-click on it, go to Properties, and check down here at the bottom to make sure there's not an unblock checkbox or an unblock button. If you see that, be sure to check it or hit the button, and then hit Apply and OK to close out of it. Windows will sometimes block these files when they're downloaded from an internet source. All of this I would save into the same file structure that the Network License Manager from Autodesk installs in. So you can put these all inside the exact same folder. And then take your license file, which I have open here as an example, and save it into that directory as well. The license file, to just break down how this works, it specifies the server information, MAC address, ports, and then all the features. You may only have one or two apps, but each feature is an individual app. It notes when it expires, how many licenses it can release, and the encrypted sign code that is used. I would not combine your license files with Autodesk license files. Please keep the Red Transit license files separated, otherwise you could run into issues. When we talk about ports, there's two ports specified by default by Red Transit Consultants. 27010 is your LMGRD port. Autodesk products operate on 27000 through 27009, so we chose 27010 as a starting point. You may change this in your license file if you want to use a different LMGRD port. There's a vendor port of 2081 that's used. Autodesk products use 2080. Again, you may change this port to something else. Both of these ports need to be opened up in your firewalls in order for the computers to access this part of the server. So be sure to do that. Next, you want to come down here into this Network License Manager folder and create a separate debug file. You can do that by going to New, start a text document, and call it RTC debug, and change it to a .log file. Next, we can open up our Flexera LMTools. If you haven't done this already, it's important to go to the Service License File tab and check this box to LMTools ignores the license environment variables. The license environment variables do not go on the server, they go on the client machines that are going to point to the server. So you want LMTools to ignore that. Next, you're going to go over to the Config Services tab. The Config Services tab allows you to create the service. It's a little confusing. If you have other services in here, you would see them in this pull-down list. You can switch to the different services to see information. Now, typing in this box, which Flexera provides, will just type over and create a brand new service. So don't worry about making modifications to that service. All right, here we'll change the service name over to Flex RTC. And then for the LMGRD, I'm going to browse and point it to the LMGRD file. Path to the license file, we'll browse, select our license file. Path to the debug file, we'll browse to that, and I'm going to change it to the RTC debug log that we created. Next, I'm going to come down at the bottom and I'm going to check Use Services and Start Server at PowerUp. I'll save the service. This error that shows up is okay. Next, before we do anything else, we'll go over to our services.msc. You can get to that by going to Start and Run and type in services.msc. This will come up. We need to come down and find our service. And it's not showing. I need to refresh. There's the service. Right click, go to Properties, go to the Logon tab, change from this account to Local System Account, Apply, OK. We can close services.msc. Next, we can go to the Start, Stop, Reread tab, and we have our service in here. You may have multiple services. Make sure to choose your service that you want to work with, and then we'll say Start Service. It should be quick. If it hangs up at anything, something else is going on. This server start successful should be shown here. Again, if it takes a while, there's a few things that could happen. Sometimes when downloading the FlexRTC exe file, this can get blocked by Windows. So you need to come in and go to Properties and look for an unblock button or checkbox. Unblock it. You may have to delete the service, re-add it to get it to point back to this and start the process over. Next, we can go to server status and we can perform a status inquiry. So what you should see in the perform status inquiry is all of your vendors that you have running through here. So anything that's defined in this list is going to show up in the server status. In this one, we only have one. So it's showing the 27010 at my computer name and what license file it's running. If we scroll down through, it'll show the vendor daemon FlexRTC. It's up and running, and then it shows each product that's available and the number of licenses issued, number in use. Anything else in here other than that is going to show that there's some issues going on. If you do have issues, come over to the Config Services tab and click View Log on your service, and you can browse down through the log. The last part in the log is going to show you what's going on. So if there's any errors, it's going to be in these last 10 to 20 lines. To close the log, you click the Close Log button. To set the client environment variable, you'll go on a computer, not the server, but the client machine that's going to access the server. You'll go to Start, type in env for environment variables, and you'll edit the system environment variables. You will need sufficient privileges to do this. Come down to the bottom where it says environment variables, and you have system variables at the very bottom here. And there's two variables you can add, and they do need to be specific names. One is FlexRTC _ license file. This is specified in our help document. The value for this will be set as your port. 27010 is the default that we use, at your computer name or server name. Then you can add additional licensed looking locations to tell it where to find things. So in my case, I have an IP address that I did. So I separated each one by a semicolon, and then I do the port again at the IP address. So if it can't find it by the computer name, it'll find it by the IP address. You can add as many as you want in here, and it'll just go down the list. So if you had a couple different servers, you could point them at different servers this way in a hierarchy. The other item that you might want to add is FlexLM timeout _timeout. Autodesk has an AKN on this, on how to do this, and then set it to a value of 3 million. What this does is allow for the license to find the server. If you're working remotely or something like that, it gives a timeout before it a time setting before it actually times out. So once these two are added, you can do this by clicking New, type in the variable name, set the value, and if they're already in here, you can edit the value. You can also push these out from a server base using something like group policy and setting out an environment variable for a group of users, and just push this out to that group of users of whatever you want this to be. Now, there's one other thing, is if the user had put on a trial license on their machine and opened the app and ran the app and was approached with the FlexNet license finder dialog, which is how it works for a trial, they may need to clear their registry, because it will put the trial location on their registry. So if you're still having issues, have them look here under HKey current user, software, FlexLM license manager. Click on that. Over the value will be FlexRTC license file, and then you can double click and clear out the data. So once that's done, I'm going to test Pipe Network Productivity Tools. We'll click an app, and the product has returned the license and the command is now working. In this case, it doesn't have any pipe network, so it's not running. But at this point now you can go on back on the server and use the perform status inquiry, and you should see that there's license checked out. All right, so I've had one of my client computers obtain a license by executing a command on the app from Civil 3D or AutoCAD. And now I'm going to come onto the server, go to the server status tab, and I'm going to do a perform status inquiry. So now when we come down through the perform status inquiry, you're going to look for whichever app you're running. Some of these have a short code name for what the app is. If you have quite a few, just kind of browse down through and you'll see which one is using it. So here we have Pipe Network Productivity Tools, one license issued, one license in use, and then it gives you some information about who has it, which computer is using it, when it started, when it was executed. All right, next we're going to talk about replacing license files with new ones for annual subscriptions. So if you get a new license file, you're going to download it, save it into your directory. You could overwrite it, or you could give it a new name. Come over to the config service, browse to it if you gave it a different name, save the service again, and then go back to start, stop, reread, and then you simply just reread the license file. I usually just save over top of it or change the contents of it and then just hit reread. You usually don't even have to stop the server for that, though it is best if somebody is using the product to do this. It may kick them out during that time. But just this reread license file button is all that really needs to be executed. Thanks for watching. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and be sure to check out our other apps on the Autodesk Exchange Store.